Good afternoon, Mr. Delgado. Can you please tell us about your educational and professional background?
Sure. So I grew up in the Central Valley, completed my K-12 education there, very rural area, graduated, came out to Long Beach, attended Long Beach State University for my bachelor's. I began as a biology major and immediately switched that to speech communication majors. Wanted to go into public relations. Completed that. Simultaneously, I did work at a restaurant, and I worked at a restaurant for 10 years, moved up in the ranks and started to build some sort of sense of management capacity in that sense. Upon graduating, I immediately acquired a position at a public relations firm and worked there for a little bit and realized that it just wasn't what I really was interested in. So I had a lot of friends go into education, teachers, and they had asked me to come and support them in their classrooms, which I agreed to. And at that point, it was like a summer that I had worked in a first grade classroom with some students and realized that my passion was to work with kids. So I went back to school, Long Beach State, for post-baccalaureate, got my multiple subjects teaching credentials. After I finished, I received a position in 2007. It was a fourth grade teaching position here in Long Beach Unified School District. Started there and decided after working under a terrible leader that I wanted to move into administration and become a principal myself. So I went back to school again at Long Beach State to obtain my master's and my administrative credential. In the meantime, I was still teaching in the Long Beach Unified School District. I taught grades 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I must say that my favorite grade was 5th grade. I worked with the GATE students. They're phenomenal students. After graduating with my master's, and just like the inconsistent positions within Long Beach, I decided that I would apply to external organizations and received an offer at a charter school where the facility was just being built, so it was going to be a new PSC charter school in South Los Angeles, the community, so we'd be the founding educators. So I was offered a position there and moved out to Los Angeles under my own personal condition that if I moved out to South Los Angeles, then I would apply and get into the USC Research School of Education doctoral program. So wanted to get my doctorate. I am currently the principal now at my school. I started off as a 3rd grade teacher, moved to a 1st grade teacher, the intervention specialist, and the dean of instruction, and now I'm the principal. So I moved up in the ranks quickly, all determined and just my passion for education, wanting to become a strong leader and to lead teachers to becoming highly effective teachers so that way we improve student achievement, especially in the area that we work in as well. Here we go.
You were recently named the principal of Aspire Charter Academy, South Los Angeles. Can you share with us the school demographics and any other important information that can give us a sense of your school?
Sure, absolutely. I take a lot of pride in my school. I've been with my school, this is my 5th year now, so it has become my community, my students, my children, my families. We have a student population of 332, 90% Hispanic population with a 9% African American population, and then 1%, 2 or more other races within our school population. We have 100% socioeconomically disadvantaged students, so all of our students are on free or reduced lunch. We have 56% English language learners and 7% students with disabilities. I have 12 highly qualified credentialed teachers, and I have grades kinder through 6th grade, so I have 2 kinder classes, 2 1st grade classes, 1 2nd grade class, 2 3rd grade classrooms, 2 4th grade classrooms, 1 5th grade classroom, and 2 6th grade classrooms. Within my school, my team is comprised of a culture and climate specialist. So we like to call our dean kind of the culture and climate specialist because we focus, on the culture within the school. I also have a dean of instruction. I have an intervention specialist. I have an education specialist. I have a psychologist. I have a counselor. I have 3 office support staff. I have 7 instructional assistants for my culture and climate specialist and my intervention specialist, and I have 5 campus monitors. So it's a pretty strong team. Over the past couple of years, I think we've had about a 30 to, I'd even go as high as 65% turnover rate where we have teachers leaving or not being asked to return. But luckily this year, with myself moving in as principal, I have an entire staff returning this time, with the exception of 1 teacher that I didn't ask to return based on varying factors. So pretty strong team, and I'm looking forward to our next year to come.
I'm ready. What organizational structures does your school use to create goal-focused teams to analyze data to guide decisions?
It's a great question. We have lots of different structures within the school site that we have to support us in designing our teams and in analyzing data, but we also have a lot of structures in place with our home office so that they can support us at the school site as well. So beginning, I don't want to say at the top, but with our home office, we do have a data analyst director that works directly with our IT team, and they have created this data, we call it our data portal. So it's a data system, a platform interface that our teachers have access to, and it houses all of our internal and external assessment data, and it's designed and organized by the data analyst director so that teachers find practical use of it. It's easy to read, it's easy to access. You can disaggregate data in many different ways. It houses data from our CELT. In the past, it housed our STAR data as well. We also have our STAR Renaissance data. We also have internal assessments such as our interims, benchmarks. We have math facts fluency assessments. We have writing snapshot assessments housed there. We have the developmental reading assessment data, DRA, housed there. There are a couple of others which teachers use occasionally, but some of the biggest ones are the ones that I named right now. So basically what our data analyst director does is he sent out to all of the regions to where he will train, and we are to appoint at our school sites what we call a data driver. So we have a data driver that runs our entire team. So they'll go to these trainings with our data analyst director, and he will directly train our data drivers and in specific assessments, whether it be, we're looking at our DRA assessment data today, and I'll show you how to break down everything so that way you can take this back to your teachers so they can get in teams to begin breaking down all the data and analyzing it. So they attend the trainings. Our data driver will come back to our team, and they will have bi-weekly to monthly PDs where the data driver will train my team specifically on how to use the tools within our data portal system. So it'll be designed to where it's interactive. We can break out in grade level groups so they can begin supporting each other with how to use the data portal system, the tools, analyzing the data, and then again they break off and they go either in their grade level teams or they can work independently if they choose to, so they can use these tools if it's specifically aligned to the specific assessment that we had trained them on. Our data drivers will continue to attend those trainings, and they will bring all of that back to our school. Another structure we have is we have weekly professional learning plans where our teachers will meet with me one-on-one and occasionally with our Dean of Instruction, and we support them in further analyzing their data and getting deep into some of the specific needs with our students. And this is where my background as intervention specialist and Dean of Instruction comes in handy, because I am able to support our teachers in really getting in deep and understanding how to analyze the data and what it means and what to do in terms of designing an action plan for their instruction in the classroom. Further, we have cycle of inquiry groups. So with our assessments, end of unit assessments, interims, benchmarks, teachers are going in every 4 to 6 weeks, and they're analyzing student work samples, and they're creating action plans that they can embed into their lesson plans for either core knowledge, ELA, or math. And in addition to that, we also have writing snapshot calibration teams where the teachers come together and pull student work samples. Again, they're calibrating, they're referencing rubrics, and they're coming to an agreement about what student work samples should look like and how they should be graded. Again, lots of different tools and structures that we can use, because obviously sometimes things can be either subjective in terms of when you're looking at data, or objective, and we want to be more on the objective side of things. So lots of practices that are supporting us.
Can you please identify the various types of data that your school uses to guide the decision-making process?
Sure. We have lots and lots of data that we use to drive our instruction, to set our goals, to incorporate into our school action plan. It can be a little overwhelming for our teachers sometimes, but it depends on how much support and training you're providing them, as well as ongoing support. But some of the data that we use to guide our decision-making processes, we use our DRA reading data, and that's one of our biggest forms of data that we use. Again, it's highly subjective at times, so I'm trying to get my teachers to move away from relying heavily on that data and having that dictate a lot of what's going on in the classroom. Again, this comes from my background as the intervention specialist and the dean of instruction. So with that, with my experience, I'm bringing in a lot of different forms of assessments that we can use in terms of data to drive our instruction. We also use our internal math and ELA interim data. We do deep data analysis with that. We use our benchmarks, deep data analysis. We use our STAR Renaissance data, definitely deep data analysis with that. And they're finding that useful because they can go in with that interface, STAR Renaissance, and they can design their own assessments to address some of those gaps in the data that we're seeing in terms of our students taking the progress monitoring assessments. We also use our blended learning computer adaptive data, math and ELA. So we have those programs where weekly we have a blended learning technology assistant. The assistant is pulling up the data for our teachers and meeting with them weekly so they can analyze it and adjust instruction according to the data in the classroom. Coming from my background as intervention specialist, I am moving in some of the intervention assessments for our teachers to use and to be able to analyze data to drive their instruction. So I'm pulling in the core phonics survey for our teachers. I also purchased the SIPS, Systematic Instruction in Phonics program, so they can use that to drive instruction. I'm also pulling in the DIBELS data assessments. We also use our leveled literacy intervention program to drive instruction, and we also use our end of unit core knowledge assessments with the data to drive instruction. We use writing snapshot assessment data after calibration and cross-scoring, and then we come back to that and we use the data to drive our instruction and design our writing units.
Once your school teams have collected and analyzed the various data types, what are your next steps in the process?
So for this, as I mentioned, we have a data driver that is trained by our data analyst director. And once we hold the professional development trainings for our teachers and they go in and analyze their own data for their classrooms, what we do have and the expectation for each teacher is to complete a reflection form. And I've gone from having them do it on paper and pencil or on their laptops to providing it via Google Drive. So as they're typing it, they don't have to submit anything. It's just directly available to me so I can see it. Basically what it is, for every form of data that we have, teachers are reflecting on their strengths, their weaknesses, individual students. I like to have them design bands of students so they really can see, the different groups, outliers as well. I would also like them to disaggregate some of the data, so they're taking a look at their English language learners, their African American students, and we've found through that although our data for our African American students is quite low, there's an interesting phenomenon where our African American females are outperforming our African American boys, and they're actually outperforming some of our Latino students as well, which is very, very interesting. So lots of things when we're reflecting in that sense, but with that, the reflection form moves on to designing an action plan. What are the next steps in your instruction, and what do you think you can do to improve your lessons, your guided reading? There's also an area where they take a look at some of the common misconceptions that students may have with some of the work that they're completing. Oftentimes we assume that these are the things that are occurring, and this is why, you know, this student is falling behind or they're struggling with this. But when you have that specific questions, it pushes teachers to think a little beyond just what we automatically assume about some of the instruction. So with that, that's one of my closing questions in terms of our PLPs, our professional learning plans. What are these misconceptions that you are addressing with your students in terms of your instruction? So they think a little deeper about that. And then as we wrap up with that reflection plan, we definitely come back to it in our next cycle of inquiry. So that way we're closing the loop with a lot of our data-driven decision making.
Mr. Delgado, thank you for taking time to talk about your data-driven decision-making at your new school site, and congratulations on your principalship appointment.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.